Adrian, how you doing? It's been a minute.
Doing well, Kurt. Thank you very much. How about yourself?
Not too bad. I saw your new article on how to scale international programs for for multinational companies. Easy for me to say. That was in the blueprint, and I loved it. First of all, and second of all, I was hoping that now that I have you here, you would walk me through a couple of the things you mentioned.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to be here and happy to talk about the international landscape of our business.
So we're talking about challenging aspects to deploying an international program and then scaling it at that. The first one that you list in your article is culture. That seems like an obvious place to start. What about culture makes it such an important piece that you have to tackle?
Well, yeah, that to me is one of the most important things and one that typically gets overlooked. Culture is something that we don't know exists until we're faced with it, right? And until you really are exposed to different aspects of culturals or different cultures around the globe is when you really realize that what you know as to be true or what you know as to be common and just a standard practice doesn't necessarily translate well across the globe and into different cultures. So, being mindful of that when we're dealing with these multinational organizations that have facilities all over the world, it's something that we have to be very sensible about in the sense that when we're talking to somebody, the way we communicate with them, for example, might be completely different than the way they're used to being communicated to. And the way they respond or the way they interpret something can be drastically different. So that's why, to me, cultural challenges is one of the biggest challenge there is when really working and dealing with multinational organizations, again, with locations all over the world.
I think that you touched on language and currency as being some of the cultural, like those are elements that you could see outside of culture in some ways, but I think they tie into it too. Are they just a part of the culture, or are they things that you need to be thinking about ahead of time? Like, let's say that I'm a company, I'm working in six different countries on two different continents. I have bunches of balls up in the air. I'm juggling stuff all the time. How big of a deal is the language barrier? How big of a deal are the different currencies?
So the language barrier, I think, is probably and arguably one of the biggest ones. Currency plays a big part of it, but in my opinion, currency is something that you learn, right? It's at the end of the day, it's math. And if you have some sense of knowledge around currencies, it's easy to say that $1 is either more or less of the other currency, and then you just do the math and it works itself out. Language, on the other hand, and it's happening to me to some extent right now as well. It's hard. It's unintangible. You're talking to me in English. I'm interpreting everything in Spanish, which is my native language, and then trying to or having to think and speak it in English again. So that plays a part. Again, in your example, I think you mentioned six different countries. That's arguably six different languages, right? So if somebody's communicating, say in English, which is the worldwide most common language, and the one that we do business in, it might be me,
Right.
for example, as a Mexican, thinking in Spanish, talking in English, then a French person receiving that message in English, processing it in French, and then having to communicate it with somebody else in um, say Dutch, for example, right? And so at the end, and I've talked a lot
Right.
about this with my group, that it's like that. What I've found out to be a very common global game growing up, which is the telephone game, right? So it does get in to be a part of that telephone game that again I found that a lot of us grew up playing where messages inevitably get really distorted or can get distorted rather. So yeah, I think language is one of the most overlooked challenges that we have because we all speak in one language, but it doesn't mean that we're all understanding and processing and thinking in that same language.
So as people are looking at Fastenal, they want to partner with Fastenal and they're sitting there thinking to themselves, I am looking for somebody who can help me handle this language barrier. I have those six countries. I have those multiple sites. they think that we are a good partner because we can, like, are we good at empathy? Is that what makes us good at this? Are we good at currency language? What makes Fastenal good at helping them scale their program?
Well, I think the primary thing that makes us good, and it's always hard to talk about it that way, but the primary thing that makes us good is that we have people locally, right? So we have people that have worked in international environments, in the 19 countries where we work in Europe and Asia, for example. 24 countries globally, outside the US. So we do have local individuals that work there that cross train constantly with multiple different nationalities and countries and backgrounds. And we have developed that sense um, of understanding of those language challenges that exist. And people like myself who have been a big advocate of really converting our organization into more of that um, international organization. We really have put in place different things to constantly talk about this, remind our groups about it, and build that empathy and that sensibility around it.
Okay. And I probably jumped ahead to why Fastenal is a good partner. I got excited. Sorry about that. Two things. I'll get us back on track. And I did want to make a shout out. I think that even though you're having to process and reprocess, I think that we're having a great conversation. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me in English because my Spanish is terrible.
No worries.
Um, let's move on to number two. Product rationalization was the second header that you had as a possible challenge that people were going to run into when they're looking at scaling a program. So, why is that?
Yeah, product rationalization is definitely another challenge, and this I think holds true across different industries, across different businesses. Um, every business that works in a multi-country scenario or international scenario has to develop different strategies to meet those markets, right? So we've got the big economies of the world, and we've got the emerging economies of the world, and whether we have the same product or not, sometimes companies need to market it differently. So when a company wants to rationalize their product or their parts list across the globe, it doesn't always apply or translate the same just because of that fact. Because a company might have product A, which is just called differently. It's marketed differently, and it might be labeled differently in another part of the world, just to kind of meet those market standards. We see this all over the place, and I mean, if you look at some of your big, for example, drink
Power
brands,
tools?
power
Oh,
tools.
drink brands. Okay.
I was kind of going in a different industry, but yeah,
Makes sense.
before the power tools, but yeah, yeah, one of your cola drinks, right? They might be marketed differently. They might come in a different um, container. What is it called? Like a bottle,
A
right?
bottle. Yep.
A different bottle, just because they have to meet a certain market acceptance in
Hmm.
different parts of the world. So you bring that now into our world, the industrial distribution world, and then yeah, you have power tools, you have PPE, you have different items that just might be the same, but need to be presented, branded, marketed a bit differently. And it's up to us as a global distributor to really look at ways to find those differences and tie those loose ends and connect those dots to make a true product rationalization work.
My favorite example, and I'm stealing from your article, so thank you for making me sound smarter here, is that you talk about how a power tool sold to one company but used in multiple locations isn't the same necessarily because what are you plugging into the wall? The way that it's drawing power is going to be different based on where it's getting it. So you can't just sell one, uh, impact driver, whatever happens to be, whatever corded tool, probably a better
Yeah.
idea, but you can't sell just one because it has to work across the board. I thought that was really interesting. Are there other examples?
Yeah, I think that's the most relevant one, and that's the one that we can
Okay.
all kind of be familiar with, because just by looking at the plug, you notice a difference, right? When you're in the U.S. or North America in general, or the Americas in general, you've got one type of plug. When you go to the UK, it's a different type of plug. When you go to most places in continental Europe, it's a different type of plug. Then you get into
Hmm.
Asia, and China is a different plug. Southeast Asia, depending on their background, they can have like a UK plug or any other type of plug. So yeah, you could have your just your regular grinder that's corded, obviously, and it doesn't really it's not really the same thing, and the same manufacturer has multiple SKUs for it. That ties into the voltage. It ties into other differences. It adds or reduces costs to the manufacturer as well. So they're marketed differently. They're sold differently, and that's the challenges, or some of the challenges that exist when trying to rationalize product globally.
Not only did you have a better example in the angle grinder, but you explained that much better than I did. Thank you. Implementation strategy is the third challenge that you have listed in your article. I feel like this one is, now this is me showing my ignorance, I fear, but I feel like this one is more straightforward, where the strategy is what you want it to be. But is that true? What is so important? Like, let's go back to that 6 country example. How do you roll out your implementation?
It is very challenging, and depending on the customer that we're dealing with, and where did they where were they founded, I'll say, or kind of where do they come from? That adds and or reduces challenges in the sense that a lot of facilities, might be very old facilities, right? And they have ways of doing things for many, many years. Versus maybe when a company is from a newer country and they're setting up a greenfield location, just a brand new facility. They don't have really a lot of those. I don't want to call it habits necessarily, but a lot of those other ways of doing things that we have to break into. So again, in your example of the six countries, if we're working with a company from North America that's expanding into, for example, Europe, and these facilities are new, it's a much easier rollout and implementation than if you have a very old and legacy company from Europe that probably has been running operations in these facilities for many years, and that change management is just much harder because people are very accustomed to dealing with the same suppliers, the same people, the same brands even, and that's what makes it challenging to really fit that global program.
That's my question. That's absolutely my question right here, right now is how, like, when somebody's, let's say that somebody's watching this. Hi, thank you for watching this. If you're interested in scaling a program, if you're interested in, yes, I have multiple locations in multiple countries and I have the problems that you've been describing, why would I work with Fastenal for this? Like, are they thinking of us already, or do we have to prove ourselves to them? If we have to prove ourselves, how are we doing that?
Yeah, well, I think that regardless of where we are and how many countries we're looking to implement something, we always have to prove ourselves.
Good
Obviously,
point.
the added or the additional countries just make it a bit harder. But yeah, absolutely, we have to prove ourselves. And maybe I'm going too much back in the example of companies in Europe, and I might just be driven by a fact that we're rolling through an implementation right now. Um, we're in a certain country again. There's facilities that have been operating for 40, 50 years, right? And it's hard for them to make a change, and just because we're all creatures of habit, right? We've all come accustomed to doing something in a certain way, and for a multi-site organization, similarly to the one I'm referencing here as an example, where they have, I believe, about 70 locations across the world, 40 of them in Europe. It's really hard for them from a top-down perspective to really drive the change at the plant level. So what we do is really be that support from the bottom up. Our local colleagues, who are really part of the community, who really speak the same language, going back to the culture, have the same cultural background, understand how to deal with individuals in those facilities. understand the message that our corporate is giving, and help be and really become those change agents or agents of change at the local level to drive that change forward. So we really act as a more of a partner to our customers in that regard, where we can really help them communicate better, understand what the challenges are, understand if the challenges are objective, right? If there's something really that's stopping us from moving forward, or if the challenges are more subjective in the sense that somebody locally is just being resistant to change.
Okay. I feel like this is my attempt at a follow up. What, let's say that we're in the middle of the implementation, things are going well. We finish the implementation, things are going well. What are the continuing steps? How do we make this sustainable? Do we need to be doing certain key touch points, or what happens?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the project never ends after implementation.
Right, right.
We have to continue to have touch points. We have to continue to monitor, let's call it the health of the program. And we have to continue to, in a way or in a sense, prove ourselves that we're driving and adding value to the organization. We typically do this by means of our strategic business reviews. And through those strategic business reviews is really where we, um, you know, get a put our finger on the pulse on what's
Oh
going
yeah.
on and how things are going. And that's how we're able to very quickly and very nimble make some tactical changes to make sure that we're always going in the course that we intended to go. And I think that's one thing that it's hard to do when you don't have as many people and locations locally in the markets where we serve, right? So a lot of companies that are more spread out, more um, big warehouse based, if you will, have that challenge because they're not there on a daily, every other day basis, really understanding what's going on and meeting regularly to make sure that those tactical changes need to occur to again stay on course.
Okay. I feel like I'm going to steal from your article here. I feel like we're at the point where we could talk a little bit about how people can get started here. And I'm just going to read these off, and then I would like to get your take on it, your take on your own words. But uh, audit your current international programs. Where are the friction points? Where are local teams improvising? Why is that a good starting point?
Can you reread them,
Yes, I
please?
sure can. Uh, the first one that I'm seeing here is audit your current international programs. Where are the friction points? Where are local teams improvising? Why is that a good place to start?
Well, it's always a good place to start by understanding what the current state is, and that's by analyzing your current international program. The friction points will be surfaced through that analysis, or at least intended to be surfaced by that analysis. Um, what we want to do always in Fastenal is improve a customer problem, right? The product in itself, and some might criticize me for saying this, but the product in itself could be somewhat irrelevant because it's all about what problem are we solving for the customer, right? If a customer has an issue in their global program for fasteners, great. If it's for PPE, great. If it's for metalworking or cutting tools or anything else, and we can provide a solution, that's what we need to focus on. So analyzing the current state of that international program, surfacing those friction points, and then letting Fastenal propose a future state scenario in how we would potentially improve those or eliminate those friction points would be the best first step.
Okay, I think two things there. The first one is that I keep doing interviews like this, and people within Fastenal are almost unanimously talking about the fact that if I'm not a problem solver, I'm not helping our customers. And everybody is focused on the idea of tell me your problem because I'm really excited about your problem. Your problem is my chance to shine. So I think that hits it on the head. The second thing here is you move on in your article and you're talking about identify your influencer sites. So I think your next line leads into this. So I'm going to try and tee it up for you here. So you're trying to figure out who can help you build momentum across your own network. So an influencer site in this case has nothing to do with social media, thank goodness. It actually is like who is going to be seen as a leader when it comes at a site level, right?
That's absolutely right. So, I think for many things, there's always like quick adopters and influencers. So that's what we're trying to look for, right? And we're trying to work with our global partners in identifying which of those sites are influencers or quick adopters. And oftentimes our customers say, let's target our big site because we want the biggest impact, or vice versa. Let's target our smallest sites because I want to really kind of gauge how things go at a minimum risk. It might not always be the best way to start. Because if either the big sites or the smaller sites are not influencers or not quick adopters, we're just going to run into issues. We always try to find the influencer sites, which oftentimes are the quick adopters as well. Because when we do engage with them and they're quick to adopt a program, they're quick to engage, they're excited about it, they want to be that change driver for their organization, then the other sites are less hesitant to explore opportunities as well. So that's what we try to identify in which individuals or what sites can be those influencers and those quick adopters.
Yeah, it feels like, I mean, we often refer to them, I believe, as child sites, but you see a big brother site doing something. You want to do what your big brother's doing. You want to do the
Yeah.
same stuff the cool kids are doing. So I get that. I get that.
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
third thing you have listed, I feel this is kind of a gimme for you, but we are talking about how to scale and we're talking about finding the right partner. I think you're going to say Fastenal, but how do you find the right partner? How can that right partner help you, help guide you through the process of scaling the way you should?
Yeah. Well, I'll say it this way. I wish we were the best partner for every company, but I know we're
Fair
not.
point.
I know that
Yep.
we don't offer the solution that every customer wants. I'm not saying that every customer needs because oftentimes they don't know what they need, and that just happens to all of us in life. But but once they do know what they want and what they need, we're still not the best and only option. Um, in my opinion, we have to find you know we have to find customers that really fit our culture, our value proposition, and customers need to find a partner that really matches with what they need and what they're looking for. And even if they don't know what they need yet, but they have a sense of what the issue is, all I ask many times to our customers is just let us do a total cost of ownership analysis. That's the best way to find what the current situation is, and I'll be the first one to say, if you're not the right partner for us, or if we're not the right partner for you, I'll be quick to say it because I don't want to waste anybody's time. Now, if I strongly feel that we do have a solution that fits your need as a customer, then we'll fight for it. Absolutely.
Well, I like the synopsis, and I appreciate you taking the time to walk me through everything here. If people want to get in touch with us, they can just reach out to you or me on LinkedIn, and we can go from there.
Absolutely.
Thanks for your time, everybody.
Thank you very much.